And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Music City Gold on the Penalty Box Radio Network. I am your host, Kyle. With me, as always, my co-hosts, Daniel and Matt.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Matt, how you feeling today?
Much better, Kyle. Freaking playoffs, buddy. The best time of the year. That's what I'm talking about. What do you call it? Week one, you can see every night there's like 4 games on. It gets a little more difficult as the weeks go on because some of the series end and you have less to watch. But the first week is jam-packed with a full froth, peak excitement. I'm freaking stoked.
And Daniel, what about you?
Oh, yeah. I already watched every single game last night and full of controversy already, which we'll get into. So this year's kind of different. The Preds aren't in it. So kind of interesting how like my kind of alliances and like my heart has completely shifted for some of these teams. So it's going to be interesting to see who I kind of like root for and cheer as the playoffs continue and go on. But a lot of former Preds out there still, so we'll get into that list later. But overall, super excited for playoff hockey finally.
I'm excited too. I watched the Oilers and the Kings last night, and I also watched the Wild and the Stars. I didn't get around to the Boston game because I knew Matt would have that one covered for us.
Yeah, buddy.
But let's get into some league news, and we'll get right out of this into the playoffs. So, Matt, Daniel, what happens when Mikhail Granlund goes to the Pittsburgh Penguins after the miracle run with the Preds? Do you think he would actually supposed to be playing like he should, or do you think he can play so bad to the point that the Penguins say, you know what, we're going to fire the president, the GM, and the AGM? Because if the second part is true, I think that's actually kind of a record.
Yeah, it's full on clean house in Pittsburgh now. So they were kind of like on the fence. I feel like they were actually solidly in a playoff position there for a bit, and then they struggled down the stretch. And Florida actually turned it on a little bit towards the end there, and ended up taking their place in the wild card spot. Just a fun fact: Granlund played 21 games with the Penguins since the trade deadline. And then he also got injured once, but he only had 4 points in 21 games. That's bad. And I'm sorry, but we were having way more production even in our system and our team. So I don't know what happened. I know his production was tailing off this season comparatively, or comparing it to last season where he was like an assist machine, if you remember. So, yeah, actually, like the season before. Okay, so he had 53 assists the year before. That's crazy. 64 points. And he at least had 36 points on the Predators before we traded him. So definitely not a good look. They're going to be paying that $5 million contract for a while. So Poyle just has this inept ability to get rid of a player right before he takes a nosedive. And I don't understand how he does it every time, but he's done it again. And it definitely looked bad on Ron Hextall. And, they started clearing house pretty quick after this.
Well, if they were firing Hextalls, they should have took Leah Hextall with them. You know what I'm saying? I'm tired of hearing her commentary, but sidebar. Sorry.
That's okay, Matt. So we'll move on down to the Anaheim Ducks. Besides Coach Dallas Eakins not returning as a head coach, the Ducks have also been given the highest chance of winning the 23 lottery draft, 18.5%.
Really? Do you have the breakdown? I wonder what's next. Like, I bet the next best team is like 17.
13 or 15 range. It's significant, actually, from first to second. So
okay, that's better than my last recollection of was that it was like the year 2 or 3 ago when Detroit was like in the top 2 or 3 spots, but remarkably the team that deserved it most, maybe this was Buffalo a couple of years ago, the team that deserved it most never won because the second and third place teams always had like a 15%, 13% chance. There was not a majority chance that the worst team in the league actually got the best pick that they deserved, which I thought kind of stunk. But
yeah, it's on screen now, so it's 18.5 and then down to 13.5 for Columbus. So I was right, 13. So yeah. I mean, it's significant, but it's going to be one of those 3 top teams more than likely.
You call it that. You call it significant, which is an interesting perspective. I'll take the opposite viewpoint in that the Ducks having 18%, that's less than 20% chance that the worst team in the league gets the best pick, which is what they deserve. I don't like that. I wish the top 3 teams all took up, say, 75%,
Yeah.
as opposed to, what is it? Top 3 teams take up to, maybe 40% now.
Yeah.
It
I-
just makes me nervous.
I fully
because-
agree because the Red Wings were on the other side of this like a year or two ago where they were like, I think, second or third, and they still didn't get really, a high pick. And I understand. But, I mean, hey, the Red Wings are still in the Bedard sweepstakes, though, for 5%. So you got to take that for what you want. But it is kind of funny how they do the distribution as far as the odds here. So, Kyle.
But what happens, with Bedard? Say that the Anaheim Ducks don't get him, and say he ends up going to a team like the Senators or the Canucks, or even, Lord forbid, the Penguins or the Capitals, teams that are historically, do well, or teams that historically do really bad, and not go to a team who actually could use him, say like the Coyotes.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw somewhere online where the first pick cannot go to anyone like past 11, even though I don't know why they have the odds on here. I saw that somewhere. Now we can Google that and try to figure that out because like it would be crazy. The Nashville Predators are on this list at 0.5%. Well, like what are they going to have one ping pong ball in the mix of all that? I don't think they actually have a chance of winning it, if I'm correct in that statement. But I think it's only the 1 through 10 worst seeds in the draft lottery will actually have a shot at the number 1 overall pick, which we can look that up. But I saw somebody online tweeting that. So kind of interesting, which kind of still doesn't make sense why they have this distributed like it is. So then why would you not take those percentages and just give them to like the top 1, 2, and 3 seeds like Matt was saying?
Yeah, maybe this is supposed to discourage teams from tanking, because if you know for a certainty that you have, say, what I would want is for the first team to honestly have like 60% chance of that happening, maybe 70, honestly, because I think the worst team should have the most fortune in helping them rebuild their franchise. But when you do it that way, 60% as opposed to 20%, you have a much higher likelihood that teams might intentionally tank for that prospect if it's a guaranteed. At least this way, with the distribution, you don't necessarily know for sure, so it might prevent tanking. I don't know that it does, but
Yeah, because see, like, okay, here are the odds for the first 11 teams eligible for the number 1 pick. So it's only the first 11 teams. So apparently the Canucks would be technically in a part of that. But it is strange that it's just the first 11. So I don't know. Kind of an interesting sidebar that I saw online. So,
Well, you kind of wonder if the Blackhawks, if they get Bedard, do you think they'll go on another dynasty run? But Matt, you're giving me the finger over there, but look what they did to your boy Jonathan Toews. They will not re-sign him. This was his last year of an 8-year contract. Love the Blackhawks, hate the Blackhawks. Toews is respected by a lot of people. He turns 35 on April 29th, and Toews even said it caught him by surprise when he was told he was not going to be re-signed. But he said he has no hard feelings against the organization because he knows it's a business at the end of the day, and he was the last remaining player from the Blackhawks core group that won the Cup in 2012, 2013, and 2015. You got some strong feelings about this, Matt?
yes.
hugely strong feelings, Kyle. I have been moaning about this for days. Even my wife has joined in on the discussion. It's a travesty. I think they've lowballed my boy Jonathan Toews. You know that I have a bias for. I always want my players to retire with the team they played their whole career with. He's respected. He is the face of the organization. Him and Patrick Kane. Of course, Patrick Kane has now left. And he kind of did it. He wanted to leave. Makes sense. I mean, the organization, they're not in playoff mode. My boy Duncan Keith left. Kane just kind of was indifferent, wanted to leave. Toews, I could understand why if Toews wanted to leave, but it wasn't that he wanted to. They forced him out. They just told him, we're not going to re-sign you. And I think that is such a slap in the face. He is the face of the franchise, won him 3 cups. He's the captain of your organization, and you're going to lowball him like that. He's played, 16 or 17 years. He's got 1 or 2 years left in the bag, and you're going to lowball him like that. And and just deal him to somewhere. It's not sign him. Not even trade him. Just we're not even going to sign you. I think that freaking sucks. And it's likely that he won't play anymore because of that. Some people say, well, he could go be a free agent and go sign somewhere else. I think he's just going to be done. He played his whole career here. He should have had a year or two as a swan song just to say thank you and go out gracefully. But this organization, just like Vegas did with my boy Fleury, and somebody else did this again.
Jonathan Quick.
Yes, they did that to Quick. This is an all too often occurrence, and it upsets me because I think you ought to honor those glory days. What a glorious run the Blackhawks had. You need to let the fans kind of have a little head tip to a nod to the fans on this one. You're just going to do my boy Jonathan Toews dirty like that. I'm upset, Kyle. I don't think there's any way around it. He says there's no hard feelings, but there absolutely is. It just seems that ever since here's another thing, interesting perspective. My wife said, she said, do you think it has anything to do with that situation a couple years ago where they had the sexual assault thing in the organization? And she was like, do you think they're trying to get rid of all the players as a fallout to the repercussions of the bad media they got from that? And I said, well, that's an interesting point of view and one I did consider, but I don't think so because that came out like a year or maybe two ago. It's too far gone now for that to be like in the cards of what is being used as a fallout. I think it's unrelated. I think the organization is just really a crap show right now, and that really sucks.
Yeah, I mean they have been a garbage fire for the last 2 years really, and you can tell there's no loyalty. This year was a weird year because, like you were saying, you kind of want to see people retire there. It was nice that the Predators did that with Peck. I'm pretty confident fans would have rioted in downtown Nashville if we would have got rid of him. So that said, seeing Tays leave, and then they've dealt Kane, and then you also got the whole Quick situation. Which, by the way, in one of my I made 2 brackets this year just for fun because who cares? I have the one with our league, and then I have just kind of my own personal one. Well, spoiler alert, one of them I put a matchup with the Kings and Vegas just on purpose because I want Quick to beat them in the second round. Anyway,
if that matchup happens, I'm going to Vegas 100%. You're welcome to come with me, Kyle.
We'll go.
Let's do it. Bros trip
to Vegas. We'll do it. That would be an incredible matchup.
Are you rooting for Fleury or Quick?
Totally Quick. Quick is Fleury's in Minnesota.
Oh, what am I thinking of? Oh, he did play.
No,
for
I'm
Vegas.
saying Quick. Yes, Quick is now playing against the Kings. I would love to do that. There's a ton of former Predators on the Kings now too, so that would be really fun. But yeah, totally. It's just been a weird year as far as I don't know, the loyalty aspect. There was a lot of trade deadline drama, and a lot of deals this year. So, I guess that is to be expected on a record-setting year as far as that's concerned. But outside of that, man, it's just crazy to think that this year, we don't have the Predators in there. So it's been kind of nice just to kind of have an unbiased, just fun, relaxed bracket this year. What were you going to say?
Let me throw this out your way. Not only did the Preds not make it, the Pittsburgh Penguins didn't make it, Ovechkin didn't make it. I saw a stat that said this is the first year that Ovi and Sidney didn't make it since 07 or I think it was 08.
I said that in our group chat. Isn't that crazy?
So
it's the passing of the guard, really. You gotta think all these other players are now getting old, and a lot of the cores are aging out. So as much as you love Boston right now, this core probably only has another couple years, really. They took a bunch of really good team-friendly contracts, but it's crazy how the league just shifts every so many years. But these are staples that have been around since I was a kid watching.
To your point, Ovechkin's not in the playoffs. Sidney Crosby's not in the playoffs. Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, Duncan Keith don't play for the Blackhawks anymore. It's what year is it?
Yeah.
And me and Emily were discussing it, and she was kind of getting a little emotional and wanted to quit talking about it because the point I was making is this is what I call the glory era of hockey, what I grew up on. I grew up on Blackhawks being a powerhouse. I grew up on Sydney in the playoffs, stuff like that. And it's none of that is around anymore. So it's a changing of the guard, a dynasty begone. It's like what you loved about hockey isn't here anymore. So you better come to grips and terms with that some way. And it's kind of sad to have that realization.
It is sad, but at the same time, too, there are new storylines that are going to be written over the next couple years, if you think about it like that. So we have McDavid in the league. You have Bedard coming in. You have all these other storylines that are going to be cropping up, and there's going to be new rivalries that are made based on, who are these players getting drafted into. You know what I mean? Like these generational players are getting drafted by certain teams, and then therefore there will be different rivalries because, listen, we love Penguins and the Caps in the playoffs the last couple years. That's been excellent first round a lot of time matchups for us to watch. And like Kyle loves him some Ovi. Like it's fantastic. Like, that's the thing. But it is going away. In the next 2 years, you're basically not going to have that anymore. But there will be other storylines that crop up, and there will be new rivalries and new matchups, just like, that started when we were a kid. Well, there'll just be new stuff that starts now. I just need it to hurry up and manifest so we get some, more juicy storylines. Like maybe Toronto will actually win a first-round playoff.
Oh, goodness. So when I was up in Canada a couple of weeks ago seeing my in-laws, we went to a friend of theirs house who is a diehard Maple Leafs fan. This man is like in his late 60s, early 70s, and he is a diehard Maple Leafs fan. And I asked him, I said, how do you think your Maple Leafs are going to do? And he goes, don't talk to me about these until they get out of the first round. He was already there with it. He's like, it does not matter how well we did this season. He goes, if we can't get out of the first round, he goes, the season is a failure. I was just like,
yeah,
that's a terrible way to look at it. But, you really think about it because you got the Leafs playing the Bolts. We saw this same scenario last year and the Bolts won. And, they say that the edge has kind of be given to the Leafs this year because the Bolts have tailed off towards the end of the season. But the possibility is there that the Leafs could choke and the Bolts go on to play the winner of Florida and Boston. So, Matt.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a harsh perspective, but I think by and large that is the shared perspective of all of Toronto fans because they've been living it for 10, 15 years or whatever, at least the last 3 or 4 years. We won a second round berth, and that's the sentiment that's shared by the whole fan base. It sucks. It's like live or die by the sword, and that's what they want. And by God, if they don't get it, they're going to have a meltdown. But, yeah. I am of the opinion still, what I still had of the opinion last year is that Toronto just doesn't have the playoff experience. They can't hang in those situations like Tampa Bay has. Even if you got veterans who are tailing off, don't care. You still got your boys there. You still got a hardcore core there who's got playoff experience, and they're gritty and tough, and they're not going to back down like this silver spoon mama's boy that Toronto team is.
Yeah, Toronto's lost 6 straight first rounds. That's historically epic, in my opinion. And before that, they missed the playoffs 3 years, and then they lost in the first round in 2013 as well. So technically, like as far as their playoffs are concerned, last 7 first rounds they've lost in. That is bad. Yeah. To his point, I can see why he has no faith. Like I don't have faith in him. Like I'm sorry. Like little precursor into my bracket. I need you to prove me wrong 1 year for me to advance you in my bracket.
The trend will reverse, but it's a lot harder to predict the trend reversal than just sticking with the current trend because past is the greatest predictor of the future, and if you've been seeing a trend, it's likely to continue.
It's up here at this point because the group that they have is like a super team, and they should have won at least one in the last couple years. But the problem is they get to that first round, and they know it's the first round, and they know all the stats, and they know the history, and it's like they're almost like tight gripping their sticks, because it's a huge mental block for this team because this team does have playoff experience. This team has got some incredible generational players on there too, but they can't get over the hump and they can't get past that mental block. So,
and a lot of that talent, they're not really distributed far down the roster as far as depth of scoring. You got Mitch Marner, you got Austin Matthews. These kids are young, and whenever they are streaky in the playoffs. It gets in their head. They don't know how to perform under this pressure. That's what Mitch Martin did last year. He just absolutely choked up and went stone cold. He's young and doesn't have experience. He's a great player, but you put them in these circumstances they're not comfortable with, and they're bound to possibly have some ill effects on them.
So, since we're talking about the Bolts and the Maple Leafs, I'm fair to assume that both of you picked the Bolts to beat the Leafs in round one.
I mean, we can start going over brackets now. First of all, I have to the precursor to this was the East took me way longer to figure out than the West. I'm pretty confident that was the same for all of us. Are we in agreement? Like the East was way harder as far as like my picks. The West was just kind of like, okay.
The way I put it as the West was just kind of set it and forget it. And then the East, it really did. When I was making my bracket last night, I went back and forth a couple of times, and I finally was just like, no, I'm going to go with what I originally said, because I originally had Boston going all the way to the final. But I was like, history has proven wrong so many times that the person who wins the President Trophies Cup never gets past the second round. I was like, I just think they're going to tail out and burn. So I ended up not putting Boston as my into the Stanley Cup final. But so we'll start with you, Matt. Between Boston and Florida, who did you pick?
I think we can universally figure this one out. Go ahead.
I know it's ironic. I'm wearing a Florida Panthers jersey.
I know. That's why it's singled you out. He walks in here with a jersey, and I said, really?
Why?
You're wearing a Florida jersey? I said, you don't have a Boston jersey?
Yeah, honestly, Kyle, my Boston jersey is a little tight, so I didn't want to put that one on camera. But I've been preaching Boston all season long. I got to ride him at least through the first round, Kyle. My boy Bertuzzi was hot last night, son. Yeah. He was being a rat, too. Oh, it's good games over in Boston. Actually, it was a good game, though.
It was a good game.
It was a good game. So I'm not nervous, but I've got a little clinching in the back there.
I put Boston in 5. Did you do 4? You went
sweet, buddy.
You went,
I'm going ham
you went
on Boston.
full send, which is, I mean, but after last night, it did give me faith that, like, I think Florida can steal one game.
Yeah, it's reasonable for sure.
Definitely reasonable, but at the same time, too, like, I was definitely on the fence of, like, do I put 4? Do I do 5? Like, that was one of those ones I'm like, man, I don't know, because, like, Boston's so smoking hot right now. But Florida was going hot into the series because they did come back from the ashes.
Yeah.
So I was like, they're hot too,
streak.
so I'll give them at least one game, benefit of the doubt. Looks like Kyle picked. What do you got?
I got Boston in 5.
Okay.
Oh, y'all just going to hold hands like that?
Hey, that's a smart choice. Statistically speaking, that's what will
see,
happen.
I'm going for those hot takes. Nobody cares about your 5 and 6 games, you know. We only care about going 7.
No, I got some 7s, so don't worry. Don't worry.
Well, then let's go down to the next one. We've got Toronto versus Tampa Bay. You two both picked Tampa. I picked Toronto in 7. What did you guys put?
I put Tampa in 7.
I got Tampa in 6. That's going to be a good one.
I think
you don't want to hold hands, Matt, with us?
I don't think so.
I mean, but it's going to be a good series.
It went 7 last year, I think.
It was 7 last year, of course, because, you know, fans were like, the Maple Leaf fans were just losing their minds. I do think this year Toronto has a better team than the Lightning overall. And Tanner Jeannot's out right now, too, for the Lightning. He still hasn't gotten back in the lineup. So
I will say.
I will.
Oh, actually, if you look at these stats, here you go, Dan. You're going to like this. On NHL.com, they have these stats. You can click on the matchup and click. There's a statistics bar. Mm-hmm. The Leafs have more points this year. They have equal points per game. They give up less goals per game. They have a higher power play, and they have a higher penalty kill than Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it's very slight though. Like if you look, I mean, like the power play is 20. They're both 25%, and they're both 80% on the penalty kill.
Yeah, it's
like,
very
statistically speaking. It's they're all within margin of error, except goals against per game. That's the only one that really stands out. But that said, it's the Maple Leafs, so I don't care about stats. So
you got to go with some heart, Daniel.
Yes,
that's kind of what I felt.
That's what we did. So I'm okay. Like I just want to see them lose again in the first round. So that's why I picked it.
Well, I'm the outlier on that one. So let's go down to the bottom half of the East, and you've got
Oh, I'm
Metro
juiced up
1,
now.
This bottom half.
Carolina Hurricanes versus the Wildcard 1, which was New York Islanders. And I put the Carolina in 5 because I do think New York will steal one game. Didn't do the 4. Don't have much faith in that. I couldn't see the games going 7, though. And I couldn't see 6, but I think Carolina is going to do it in 5. And they did win their game last night 2-1 against New York. Sebastian Aho with a point, Nosen with a point, and then Pulak with a point for the Islanders. And it was a bit of a physical game, too, a little bit. I saw Carolina throwing the body around just a little bit, but I think New York will probably either steal game 2 or probably end up stealing game 4. Matt, what do you got for this?
Yeah, I have to agree, Kyle. Here's a little insight, peek behind the curtain. I like the Islanders, but I didn't have it in me to pick a wild card team this year. I just don't have faith that they can upset a 1 seed. I got Carolina in 6.
Baby, I got a good juicy take on this one. So I got the Islanders in 7.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
And I said this year, like I said, I threw caution to the wind. I wanted to pick a wild card. I wanted to pick one good, really good upset for the first round. This is it. And the only reason, and now you look at all the advanced stats. I love my stats. Carolina's really good on special teams. Like, really good. So the key for the Islanders is they cannot take a lot of penalties. Like, they're going to have to keep it 5-on-5. But I think the one thing that could save the Islanders is Sorokin, because he's having the second best season or goaltending season behind Saros as far as hot being like goals goals saved above expected, second pretty much. There's some sites that have Linus ahead of him, but from what I've seen aggregated across multiple statistic sites, Sorokin is the second best overall goaltender in the league right now. So he's smoking hot. Last night, I mean, how many shots on goal did Carolina have? Like 40, 45, and it was still a two goals against game. That shows me that Sorokin can keep it within reason. It's just, will they be able to have enough offensive firepower to be able to get over the hump and steal a couple games?
Well, one thing I like unique to the Islanders is that they play a system that none of the other teams play. They like to play more of a defensive, shutdown, low-scoring game. And a lot of these other fast teams, Carolina's one of them, they're fast. New Jersey's fairly fast. Everybody's going towards speed and quickness. And Islanders just play a style of game that's different from everybody. Yep. So it's almost like throwing like a change-up pitch to a team who's used to seeing fastballs all the time. It throws teams for a loop, especially it won't be the case for Carolina, but if you can get them down further in the bracket against teams that they haven't played as much, it'll really throw them for a loop. Yep. So I like that pick.
It was definitely a wild card pick. They had 37 shots on goal, and they only had 2 goals. So that does prove my point that Sorokin can be elite, but they're going to have to somehow find that offense just to get like the 2 or 3 goals needed. Like if they could score 3 goals in a game, there's a good chance they might win the game. You know, like to Matt's point, they don't want 4, 5, 6 goals. Like they only need 3 with Sorokin. So that, like I said, very hot take on that one, but I feel comfortable with the pick. Even though they lost last night, they did look really good. It was a very competitive game.
So Matt, what do you have Carolina beating the Islanders in?
I got Carolina in 6.
And Matt, I'm sorry, not Matt. Daniel, what do you have Islanders beating the Canes in?
7.
7?
Yeah, it
okay.
would have to go to 7 because.
So 5, 6, 7. Close enough. All right, now let's go down to the last game in the bottom half of the East bracket, which is New Jersey Devils against New York Rangers. And I picked the Rangers beating the Devils because, as Daniel and I have talked for, New York loaded up on the trade deadline.
Yep.
They've been surging ever since that happened. Patrick Kane's up there now with them too. They got Artemi Panarin with them. I mean, they've been doing fantastic. And you look at the stats that NHL provided, you know, you look at goals per game, Devils are at 3.4, and the Rangers are right behind them at 3.3. And every other stat in this list is basically neck and neck. The only real big difference between these teams was the points that was scheduled. And the majority of those 98 points that the Rangers picked up was on the back half. And so I said that the Rangers are going to beat the Devils in 7 games because I think it will take 7 games to get just for this game to get done. Daniel?
I said Rangers in 6. And this is technically an upset because they're under seed. But I'm sorry, like as we said, ever since the trade deadline, this team has been lights out. They've been killing it. They had a stretch of like 3 games where they scored like 18 goals or something stupid because it was like the Preds and somebody else back to back. They scored like 14 goals in 2 games. Like, it's pretty impressive, their offensive firepower right now. They have Kreider, they have Tarasenko, they have Kane, they have Zibanejad. Like
Zibanejad's been so good this year.
Yeah, he's been on fire, and they still have great goaltending with Shesterkin. So they are the team, in my opinion, that could make a really good run. They are the team that can make a good run. So I picked
breaking
them
news real quick.
I know they're already up 2-0 in the
2-0
first period.
over the Devils, Matt.
And guess who scored? Kreider and Tarasenko, the 2 that I just mentioned. So, I see a frowny face over there, which means
that's a visitor ice too. We're in Jersey tonight.
Yes. So they might be stealing one on the road to start.
Well, it's still early, Daniel.
It's still early, but we'll see. So I guess we're gonna transition to Matt, whose pick is obviously not the New York Rangers.
Yeah.
So.
I've got Jersey in 7. I'm very interested in this series. This was a hot one. I think we all kind of speculating that's going to be. I like my underdog teams. Everybody thought when Jersey came out and was hot this year, they led the league, I think, at one point. At the start of the season, they were like number 1 or number 2 before Boston got up there. It's like Dallas was, I think it was 2017 when they made the Cup Finals run, and they were like a nobody team that nobody cared about them. Jersey hasn't been hot in years, and all of a sudden they're in the playoffs, and they're a 2 seed. I'm going for it, buddy.
Yeah.
I like my junkyard dog teams that have something to prove. They hadn't been here in a while, so they feel obligated and are motivated to make it happen, as opposed to teams like, say, the Rangers, who have been a little bit sleepy. Maybe it's not quite since the Shesterkin era, but they've been a little sleepy. They don't really have a thrust to perform at excessive levels to go to multiple rounds. They're tiresome. They're aging. Jersey is hungry, and I like that in a team. They're what Boston or what Dallas was to me a couple years ago. I like them, and I think they're going to edge it out. They have a depth of scoring. I do think Shesterkin is the X factor, but if he's off one night, I don't know that the Rangers can match the depth of scoring that Jersey has.
I will say this: the Devils are a high-flying, very fast young team, and I will say that I actually selfishly kind of don't want the Islanders to win. I want Carolina to win and New Jersey to win to see that series. Could you imagine a Carolina-New Jersey series? You're talking like 5-6 goals a piece per game and all nonstop action. I mean, you're talking 40 shots a game at least from Carolina. They always get their shots on goal. So, like, yeah, kind of part of me wants that matchup to happen because I think that would be probably one of the fastest-paced series games we've seen in a long time because you always have one team that kind of balances it out. Yeah, that would be incredible to watch.
And now we'll swing over to the top of the West, and you've got defending champions Colorado Avalanche versus the upstart Seattle Kraken, who Matt's boy Ellie Tolvanen is on.
Oh, smoking it too, Kyle.
And even though Tolvanen has been having a good season and the Kraken, showed out and did well enough to get into that playoff spot, barely, they struggled. They were doing good the first half, and then they struggled mightily. And it came down to, I think it was, the 3-way race almost between the Kraken, the Jets, and the Preds at one point.
Yeah, they had a couple of wins towards the end there to seal it, but it did get a little hairy for them. I was like, they definitely were at, they were like a 3rd or 2nd seed in the Pacific at one point. So they definitely tailed off towards the end of the season, which is not a good sign going into the playoffs against the Avalanche. So
yeah.
I thought it was humorous that Cale Makar is magically back into the roster now that the playoffs have started. But I decided that the Colorado was going to take this game and take the series in 6 against the Kraken.
That's
6.
Very bold on the game. I mean,
generous, Kyle.
It's very generous with that. So I did Colorado in 5.
Let's go.
So I think Seattle can maybe eke out one. Just once again, statistically speaking,
I don't know that they can even do that.
But isn't Landeskog still out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
So That's why I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. But I knew Makar was coming back. Makar, they've been kind of like really babying him the last month because they're like, oh, we know the playoffs are coming. We don't really need it because the team is still like pretty much stacked. Okay, like they're doing this without like Landeskog, and they still won first in the Central, and without Makar. Yeah, they're gonna be just fine. And Makar's back now, so yeah. Colorado in 5, and it might be 4. We'll see.
See, here's the thing. Seattle has these, as I just alluded to, they have this darling kid brother nature about them that you would think I should be all on board with. They're a fresh team. They're a bunch of upstarts. They got a bunch of rejects that nobody wanted from their picks. But here's the thing. I just don't like them. So I don't care that
he said, I don't like them.
Sorry, they're not my team. I won't give them the same good graces that I'm giving Jersey. And even if I wanted to, Colorado is a freaking powerhouse. So even if I wanted to like them, they're going to get pants in the schoolyard, and they're going to be lucky to not get swept.
I agree. I agree with all that. I just love it. They're not my team. So
I know. I'm sitting there thinking I should say something else, but nah, that's it. We're gonna move on. So we're going to Dallas and the Wild. And I watched this game last night, and I picked Dallas in 6 over Minnesota. Even though I still have 23 hours and 6 minutes to change my bracket after watching last night's game, I'm still going to say Dallas is going to eke it out in 6 games because Dallas is a much faster team than the Wild. Robertson's doing great. Ottinger is a beast of a goalie. But the Wild do bring that physicality with Reeves and Dumba. And then, Matt, did you see the thing that happened last night with Pavelski?
Yeah, they bring some type of physicality. Take your head off and give you on concussion protocol kind of crap. Watch my mate's head bounce off the freaking ice from Matt Dumba. Piece of trash that guy is.
Yeah. I knew Matt was going to be livid because I just said Dumba hit, oh my, and I'm like waiting for Matt and our text to reply, and I'm like, yeah, that was a nasty hit. Like, it was blindsided, and the best part is they reduced it from a major to a minor penalty, and then was it Domi, because of retaliation, got the 10 minutes, so he was out for 10 minutes. They were down like 3 forwards.
Yeah, that's a piece of junk. So, ironically, the broadcast mentioned last night that the whole reason they could make it a 5-minute major was so they could review it and then see if it needed to be a 5-minute or if it could go down to a 2-minute. And do you know what injury brought that rule on?
Yes. The Pavelski.
Yeah. Pavelski got hit prior in the playoffs.
The game that changed everything. That was the one where they got like all those penalties, and then it like just destroyed the franchise because basically Vegas came storming back. Remember?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, and it like eliminated the Sharks. So, and then from there, basically the Sharks just tanked into oblivion. So, yeah, so they made that rule because of that. So, and ironically enough, it happens to him again, and he got absolutely creamed by Dumba, and it was a bad hit. I cannot believe like they reduced it. It was pretty bad. I thought this game and the Edmonton game, just to flash forward a little bit, the refs definitely weighed heavy on the games, which you don't want to see.
Yes.
I don't think they got the right calls in certain times. Like this one definitely should have been a little heavy-handed. Like they should have called this one, like for sure. Where the Oilers game, I was kind of like, probably not calling that. You know, like it's just one of those, like, it just is what it is, but you kind of hate to see it.
I thought a couple of years ago they changed it to where all these calls had to go up to Toronto. That way you could eliminate any potential bias, like who's that referee, Tim Peel kind of incidents where they intentionally favor certain teams. I thought Toronto was supposed to deal with that.
Alleged. It's not been proven.
Well, yes. Still, we see a lot of it, and there's a lot of happy accidents that seem to happen with certain referees and calling calls or no calls during this game, just like we saw. That's not what you want to see on game one. We had multiple games that had these game-deciding play like calls on the ice that happened and what they let happen, and that's not what you want to see. So it is odd.
See, it's weird for me because, you know, we always joke that the Wild's kind of like the Preds B team because you got Ryan Hartman on there. Kevin Fiala was on there for a little bit. I forgot Freddie Gaudreau was on the Wild now.
Yeah.
And you look at this team, and it's kind of like you were talking with the Islanders. They play almost what's considered a unique style of play now, Well, as we see the league go into speed and skill, it kind of seems like the Wild have kind of went reverse, and they're going for the big body forwards, the completing your checks constantly, no matter what it was. They were talking about this last night, and PK Subban was talking about as a defenseman, he was always taught finish your check, no matter what it is. If you win for the check, finish your check, and it looks like that's what the Wild are going to be doing this entire series. Is they're going to be finishing the check, and they're going to basically try to stomp this team to death and progress into the second round.
It is interesting because I have always been a proponent of that. Give me that 95 bloodbath with with Detroit in Colorado. I love that brutality of hockey. So it's interesting to put us in a position where we're almost kind of resenting this. But I think it's from the perspective of these hits are like sucker punches.
Yes.
They're like cross checks to the neck when I can't behind my back.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to do a man on man. We're going to beat each other in the face. We're going to fight. It's just like sucker punching people, and that's what we don't want to see because that's how people get injured. Nobody gets career injured from just doing a fist fight. It's always this kind of crap.
Yeah, there's a total difference between dirty plays and physicality. Like most of the game last night, the Wild were playing physical, but unfortunately, part of that is like once you get caught up in that physical nature, then there are certain players that tend to take it a little further, and Dumba has a history of that too. Like there's other players around the league that we know about that tend to do this. And that was 100% a dirty hit. I mean, like to your point, he wasn't even looking. You literally just blindsided somebody, upended them with your elbow to the face, and there's nothing they could do. They didn't see it coming, and then on top of it, his head hit the ice at the end.
Yeah.
And then Dumba was in the penalty box smirking.
Yeah. That
makes me mad.
Yeah, I it just is what it is. That's something you don't want to see. Like I said, I'm all for the physicality because that game was great. It had a bunch of juice. It had a bunch of fights early on in the game too. Like they were just chippy. I like that. I'm okay with that. But yeah, seeing a hit like that, man, and it was rough. And it's one of your veterans who has been very much contributing. So it does factor in, because I picked Dallas. I picked Dallas in 6. I don't know what you picked. Did you?
Dallas in 5.
Dallas in 5. Dallas in 6 and 6. Dallas in 5 now is looking a little bit on the fence now with Pavelski out. So, and going back to that, I think Dallas has the huge edge with Ottinger too. Ottinger's just way better as far as the goalie concerned, but and their power play is smoking hot. So like, I don't know. It was just sad to see that. The game pretty much got decided based on shorthandedness, and then eventually, the Wild got a very lucky bounce. Very lucky bounce at the end. I don't know if you saw the Hartman goal, but literally bounce off the stage and he was just there unblocked. So good for him. But at the same time too, I think Dallas will eke it out in this series, but this is going to be a physical series. Neither one of these teams are going to advance in the next round. Mark my word, because they're going to be so broken after this series that they're going to have no juice.
Yeah, that definitely is a factor, honestly.
So, I was thinking about that last night. I'm like, they're already in double OT, and they've had concussions, and it's been wildly shorthanded. There's multiple players that hit 40 minutes of ice time last night. Yeah, game 1. I'm like, this is game 1. So, and the winner's probably going to get Colorado. So, sorry guys, but it was good while it lasted. I can already see the writing on the wall on this section of the bracket. So.
And so we'll move on now to the bottom of the West, which is Vegas versus Winnipeg. And I kind of think we're all in the same agreement. Matt may have picked differently here. I said Vegas is going to take it in 5 because I don't think Connor Hellebuyck and Big Save Dave are going to be able to stop Pietrangelo and Stevenson, and the Knights as a whole are just going to take it. I think the Jets squeaked in, and I think they're just going to squeak out too. And that's kind of all I got on it. I'll be like Matt. Just don't like the Jets. So, Matt, we'll start with you. Who did you pick on this series?
Kyle, I got my boy, the Vegas Knights, with Johnny Quick in 4-game sweep, buddy. Let's go.
That's a bold assumption in 4 games.
4-game sweep. 4-game sweep. All right. So what did you pick, Kyle? Did you already say?
Yep,
All
I
right,
said
Vegas.
Vegas in 5.
All right, so I'm going super bold on this one for y'all. I did Winnipeg in 7. So
What?
Wild card.
So I will say this: there for a bit, Winnipeg did struggle, and they got knocked down to that wild card spot. But the last about 10 games of the regular season, they were pretty hot. The thing is, the Preds couldn't keep up with them because they kept winning, and they were winning against decent teams too. The X factor, Hellebuyck. That's all it is. I feel like they got decent production, and then I think Hellebuyck is going to be the X factor in the series because I think his goaltending will shine a little better than everybody else. He's been their workhorse, by the way. Him and Saros are like the 2 players that had the most games played this year, by the way. They're just going to keep riding him. So, 7.
I like the theory. It's a bold one.
It's bold.
Wild card team. And I said the thing about Johnny Quick, I don't even think he's their main goalie right now. It's just I like that veteran. You know, they've been doing goalies wrong lately, and I'm gonna ride that veteran leadership, even if he's not on the ice.
The other bracket, I have Vegas winning, and like I said, and the Kings winning because of that matchup. So,
Okay.
But the official one, I have Winnipeg in 7 for an upset. So, I needed to be slightly different. I knew you guys were gonna pick Vegas. So,
Well, then what about Edmonton versus LA? I picked Edmonton to win in 7. And did we join hands, Matt?
That's right, Kyle. We're going to hold hands, buddy.
Fantastic. And Daniel, I know you watched this game last night too a little bit. Draisaitl got the opening goal, and I was like, man, here we go. McDavid was doing good. I heard some people say they thought he played terrible last night. But, man, can you not believe it? Oilers go in there with a 3-1 lead in the third in the last 8 minutes. Gave up 2 goals and then lost it in OT. And it's like, oh, my goodness. This is just infuriating because I'm like, come on, McDavid. You are a generational talent. Do not let this happen to you again. Do not become a perennial Toronto Maple Leaf story.
last night was not McDavid's fault. A lot of that was on the refs. I'm sorry. Now, one of the goals in the third, that second goal for the Kings, great goal. It was just, right off the face off there. What was it? Kopitar just snipes it. They get a penalty called. They pull the goalie. It's 6-on-4. Unfortunate. Then they get another penalty call, which was little kind of whatever. There was probably a dive involved too, whatever. Then they immediately score, and that ends the game. And Oilers fans were ticked. I picked Edmonton in 6, by the way. But the one thing that has plagued this team for whatever reason is getting scored on or like their goaltending. This year, their defense has been a lot better since they acquired Ekholm. Actually, going into the playoffs, they were one of the hottest teams. They were hotter than the Bruins. They were like 16-0-1 or 16-1 since coming in to the playoffs or since the trade deadline. So, hottest team coming in. But, once again, kind of unfortunate. Kind of slows down a little bit. Changes a little bit in playoffs than the regular season. But still have them advancing. It was just last night was kind of unfortunate, and the refs did weigh heavy on the game. Very heavy on the game.
I think Matt picked LA.
No.
Oh.
No.
He had to pick Edmonton.
I got Edmonton. We alluded to how Crosby and Ovechkin are out. You kind of want to crown the new king, and I want to see McDavid take the throne because we've been talking about it. He is the heir apparent. He's the new kid. We want to see him take the throne, or else he's just wasting his years. His prime years are being wasted in Edmonton, so they can at least give him 1 cup. I want to see that happen so we can start those new storylines to get our new hero going. I don't know that they'll be able to do it, but I like the idea of it.
Yeah.
And of all the matchups, this is one of those that, like, I've got my ticket punched. I'm watching all the games. It's a little bit tough because it's West Coast, but I'm very excited to see what happens in this matchup because the Kings kind of have my story again about kind of squeaking in here, a little bit. I want to see some resurgence from the old. I want to see they haven't been hot in a couple of years. I want to see them do good. But I think Edmonton's going to edge out, and seems to be we all agree.
All right. So now that we've varied a little bit in our brackets, so Kyle, do you want to run through all your picks really quick, like second round up into the conference final and your final pick, so we can just pick you apart here?
Sure, I can do it real quick. So I've got second round being in the East of Boston and Toronto. Then I've got Carolina, New York, My Eastern Conference final is going to be Boston versus New York, with
like
New
that.
York advancing to the Stanley Cup final.
Wow, what a bold choice.
That is a bold pick. In the West, I've got Colorado and Dallas, and Vegas and Edmonton in the second round. Then I've got Dallas versus Edmonton for my Western Conference final. And then I've got the Oilers in the Stanley Cup final against the Rangers in the East, and I picked the Rangers to be the Stanley Cup champion.
Okay.
It's a bold choice.
I do like some of your choices this year. I will say Dallas. That one's gonna be a little sus now on the fence because with Pavelski being out, and then on top of it, like they're gonna be banged up before going against Colorado. Colorado's gonna smoke whoever comes out of that C2, C3 spot. So
I like the idea, Kyle. You've got no first seeds.
yeah, he went full send this year.
Well, you got, let's see, in the finals, you got a 2 seed, a 2 seed, a 3 seed, and a 1 seed. I like picking the underdogs.
Yeah, this is a good.
I like it because
It's a good bracket.
it's like a temptation to pick Boston because they're the best team of all time, and it's what 60% of every bracket is probably going to have Boston winning, and that never wins because the President's Trophy hasn't won in I think 10 or 12 years or something. They're the easy pick. I like that you took something different.
Yeah, this is a good bracket. I like it.
What about you, Matt? What's your bracket look like?
Well, I got to tell you, Kyle, in the West, we got Colorado and Dallas, and we got Edmonton and Vegas. I'm just going ahead and tell you,
baby.
we got Edmonton coming out at the bottom bracket, facing off against
Colorado.
the Giant Slayers, Dallas freaking Stars, riding Jake freaking Robinson train. My boy.
Y'all are smoking it so hard right now because, like, now Pavelski's injured, and they're going to be beat up in that series.
Well, good thing we can change our bracket.
You got 23 hours, baby.
Yeah, sidebar, I think we all have decided we don't like the bracket change idea because primarily that reason right there.
Yes.
Pavelski being injured, now I can just change my bracket. It's like an illegal move. I don't like it. Even though last year I did it, I think I've changed my mind. I don't like it. But yeah, I've got the Jake Robinson train. I know that is a wild pick, but I got to pick. I can't pick a 1 seed all the time. I got to pick an upset somewhere. I think Colorado might get shut down a little bit. Dallas is almost a wild card. I like them. I like their talent. We'll see where it goes, but I got them going to the finals.
You got them going to the finals?
To the finals, buddy.
So Dallas is gonna upset the Oilers.
Colorado and the Oilers, yeah.
Okay.
All right, and what's your West? What's your East?
In the East, I got a brutal matchup of Tampa Bay and Boston. I'm giving it to Boston, boys.
Yeah.
They're just too deep. That's what it is. And yeah, they're the best team, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say they're the best team of all time, but they have too much depth. They have the best goalie in the league, and they have too much of depth of scoring. They're not reliant on one line like.
You think he's the best goalie in the league?
I'm sorry, like how Toronto does. I think he is the best goalie in the league right now, Olmark.
I would say that your team is the best team and the depth team of the league, and that's why.
I think that's definitely true. It remains to be seen if he's the best because we talked about he's got the best save percentage and blah blah blah. But
he's got the
as
best
I mentioned,
freaking team.
If you have great defense, that limits the scoring chances to low quality, dangerous scoring chances from like the point and outside areas, which means they're not likely to get through to a goal. So you're automatically going to have a higher save percentage. But whatever it is, I think the juice is flowing from the top of the lineup down to the bottom.
It is.
I got Boston. Got down to the bottom. You got Jersey and Carolina, a freaking powerhouse matchup. I can't wait to see. I got Jersey, same reasons. I'm going depth this year. I think Jersey's got it. And I've got Boston going up in the finals against Dallas, and it's going to be the Boston freaking Bruins. They're going to be the first President's Trophy winner in 7 years to make it past the second round. And the President's Trophy winner is due a Stanley Cup, Kyle. It's going to happen this year. Let's freaking go.
So you went with a 60%.
Yeah.
That's what you're telling me. And I wasn't discrediting line. Like, I think he's had an incredible year. He's like the third best goalie, according to like all the metrics.
He's no Saros, am I right?
No, or Sorokin. I mean, even just the stat that I sent the other day. What was that stat that I had with steals? That was an incredible stat because I think Saros and Sorokin were 1 and 2 on that, correct?
They were.
Yeah, and Linus wasn't on there. Like, if I can find it. Yeah. I don't know. Sorry. Gibson was 2. That's because his team truly is bad. I mean, it was real bad. But Saros actually had 10 games stolen, which equates to like almost 20 points, which blows my mind. So, yeah, I'm not going to discredit anything from Linus. I think he's fantastic, but I do think it is a little overblown this year. So, for me, let's go back over. Let's just get this over with because we already know my feelings on the second round matchup with Colorado and what would be the Dallas Stars. The Avs are definitely going to win that one just because I think they're going to be too beat up, and that is proving in real time as Pavelski is now out. I had Winnipeg advancing, which was definitely more of a riskier pick, and then Edmonton. I have Edmonton advancing past that, so my conference final will be Avalanche and the Oilers, which that you can sign me up for that right now because that will be an incredible conference final. Out of that, I'm picking the Oilers to go to the finals.
Going to crown a new champ this year?
I'm gonna just put them into the finals because I wanted kind of like a little bit of a wild card this year. I do think the Landeskog injury will factor in a bit for Colorado as far as their depth because he's, a huge key piece to that team. So let's go back over to the East where I had way harder time trying to figure out the bracket. So my second round matchup would be Boston and Tampa Bay. Sorry, it's Boston. Like, I got to go with Boston. Like, as much as I love Tampa Bay and that veteran experience in the playoffs, and they got it, as Matt said, one of the best teams we've ever seen. They got to still win the cup to hang that title up at the end of the year as the best team ever. But they are truly stacked this year, so I do think they knocked the champs off there. Then down in my south side of the bracket here, man, I have the Islanders and the Rangers, which is two picks, I think, against y'all's. So totally different bracket matchup for me. I picked the Rangers. They are smoking right now. So like Kyle and I had a little thing going on with the Rangers. So I have the Rangers in Boston in the conference final on the eastern side with Boston winning and going to the cup.
Let's go.
They're just they're too deep. I think that will be the team that will finally be able to shut down a lot of the Rangers' offense because they have such a great defensive core and they limit the teams to the low danger.
Yeah, they have a really good
they're
system.
So good at that. They know how to do it. They've been doing it consistently all year. Even though New York's a juggernaut right now offensively, I think that's where they get shut down. They go to Boston. This was kind of a toss-up for me because I wanted to pick Boston, but guess what? I'm picking the Oilers to win it all this year.
Glory McDavid.
We all three have different people winning.
I went all full send. I want to see the bar go to someone else. I couldn't pick the easy pick as much as I wanted to. Like I said, there's a pretty good chance Boston's winning it all this year. I'm going to be very honest up front with you. They are stacked.
Well, there's probably a 60% chance they don't win too. So,
but also at the same time too, maybe an injury happens. You never know. You really never know in the playoffs. But that said, I have the Oilers beating Boston in the final. So that all three of us have picked a different champion this year, which I love, and I think all the brackets are very good. We all have kind of our own little spicy picks. So
we all have a little bit of an underdog we're trying to ride.
Yeah, I think Kyle and I though have really gone full send though. Because he has Oilers and the Rangers in the final. That's pretty full send. I did get Boston in the final, but the first half of my Eastern bracket is totally different than y'all's, where I have Carolina losing and New Jersey losing. So that's where I would be able to make up some points if that does happen. But definitely a fun bracket. I feel like this year was definitely one of the more fun brackets to put together just because I didn't have the Preds. I didn't have anything to go for. So just, full send.
What's your favorite matchup out of the first round, you think?
Can we pick one from the East and one from the West?
Sure.
Okay, West, Oilers, and Kings.
Yeah.
Same for me too. Oilers and Kings.
That was the easiest one, just because there wasn't really any juicy matchups in the first round. Like I said, I'm waiting more to the second round for the West. For the East, man, I've gone back and forth on this one. I was pretty excited about New Jersey and New York, because that's the battle of, like, New York, kind of. They're really close to each other. I mean, like, what is that? Within miles?
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally like across the.
Yeah, I think they have a name for it, but yeah.
Yeah, the tribe, whatever, because it's like them and the Islanders. So I'd lean towards that, but I got to go with Tampa Bay, Toronto, just because I want to see Toronto lose in Game 7 again in the first round.
Yeah, that's the game I'm most interested for in the East.
I like that matchup, but it's really hard to look at two blue and white teams on the ice. I get confused.
Yeah, but we've been seeing it the last couple.
Yeah.
And it's always the Lightning win. So, I mean, it just is what it is. So
I think I'm happy with I'm excited for any of the four out of the East.
By the way, both games are 2-0 right now. Rangers are up in the second, and the Lightning are up against the Leafs 2-0.
Let's go.
Let's go, Kyle.
Well, I will say this. If you listen to this episode and you're like, man, I really want to root for a team that has a Predator in the playoffs, so I kind of feel like I'm paying some homage to my, homage, however you want to say it, allegiance to the Predators. Here we go. We'll say it that way. Allegiance to the Predators team. You've got Ryan Suter in the Dallas Stars. You got Matthias Ekholm playing for the Oilers, Nick Cousins playing for the Florida Panthers, Patrick Hornquist, Victor Arvidsson, and Kevin Fiala are playing for the Kings. Freddie Gaudreau and Ryan Hartman are playing for the Wild. Eric Hall is playing for the Devils. L.A. Tolvanen is playing for the Kraken. Tanner Jeannot is with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Cal Yarncroke, which I didn't realize was for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Nino Niederreiter and David Riddick are with the Winnipeg Jets. So if you don't have a team to root for, there you go. I gave you several teams you can root for, and so you won't feel bad about it.
Yeah, I was sitting here thinking about that today, because I was watching the matchup last night, and it was very weird seeing Arvidsson play against Ekholm on two totally different teams. And by the way, Fiala is still injured, by the way. So that could be an X factor for the Kings if he does get back in the first round series or not. So just want to throw that out there. I think he's day to day right now.
And guys, that's the show for today. If you like us, you can find us at Music City Gold on Penalty Box Radio. You can find us on Twitter at Music City Gold, and you can also find us on YouTube. Enjoying the Stanley Cup Playoffs? Until next time, we will see you on the ice.